Okay, we're live.
We are live, okay. Are we expecting any appointments? As long as I got my board here. Okay, it's 10 o'clock, it's a little after 10. We'll start the meeting. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Nick Madison, the chairman of the committee. And I welcome everybody here this morning. It's nice to see that we have a lot of interest in this project. Good thing. Now we'll start out with roll call. I am here. Mr. Nigro is not here this morning, and neither is Allison Walsh, our secretary, both of them excused. Sarah is here. Alejandra is here. Jasmine Higgins is here. And Danielle Melendez is here with a guest that we're all glad to see. So, the next order of business is the meeting minutes review. You have them in your packet and minutes of the June 12th meeting. Are there any comments, additions, corrections, and anyone would like to make to those minutes? Hearing none, I would ask for a resolution to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Jasmine, second. Danielle, any further discussion? Hearing none, I ask for a vote to approve those minutes. All in favor, say aye. Any noes? Hearing none, pass. The next item on the agenda today is the CFO report, and Amy Thompson, our finance director, is here to report. Amy?
I'll start with the balance sheet. As of May 31st year to date, we had $168,000 in cash. We have been reimbursed $812,000 year to date from the county for reimbursement of operating expenses. We still are holding roughly $4 million in the trust debt reserve and $943,000 prepaid expenses, which is the annual insurance payment that portion is moved over monthly. Moving down to the liabilities, we have $77,000 in accounts payable, which consisted of invoices for legal, professional services, and National Grid. And down below is deferred revenue, $936,000. That is county funds that we received for the large insurance payment that was made back in March. Is there any questions on the balance sheet? Move over to P&L. So, as I mentioned, year to date, we received $812,000 from the county for reimbursement of operating expenses, $36,000 interest and dividends, and roughly $5,000 for rental income and services. Large expenses year to date of note are bond issuance costs, which are $861,000, insurance $313,000. And legal fees of $68,000. Total payroll and benefits year to date were $210,000. Repairs and maintenance, we spent $52,000 year to date, which include minor repairs, buildings, and landscaping. And we have spent $123,000 on utilities.
Just have a quick question. Now that we're in the thick of it, do you feel as though the expenses are more than expected?
Yep, yes, but I'll be getting to that next, yeah. Yeah, in the beginning, during the budget, we didn't have much to go on, we relied on the college to provide us with what they thought the operating expenses were, so I think, next year, our budget for 2026 will be more in line with, what we know now after the operating expenses.
Extra costs.
Yeah, there.
I asked Kevin, there are some very high extraordinary costs that we didn't anticipate, taking over the campus. expenses that we're incurring. And they're not necessarily visible.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we've got, some kind of, an unusual pattern. Usually you base your operating expenses on what the previous owner had. But, as we all know, the previous owner went bankrupt, and there were not students and faculty and people coming and going on campus. And halfway through the process, we had, thankfully, we had the county occupy some of the buildings to get some life back in here. And this kind of made the expense profile a little bit uneven and uncertain. But, and one that, as Nick was just mentioning, insurance was one that came in, a good bit higher. And the unfortunate fact of it is that it is more expensive to insure unoccupied buildings than it is to insure occupied buildings. So, that caused some additional expenses. But Amy and her team have launched an expense reduction program, and I'm confident in Amy and her team's ability to get those expenses down. And Amy, maybe you want to talk a little bit about that for the benefit of the rest of the board.
Yeah, so we just started the process, and a few items that we hope to be able to reduce, as with the sale of buildings, National Grid, once we sell some of the larger buildings, we hope to see a reduction of $35,000 to $40,000 a month in utilities. Joe and I have worked to hire 3 additional security guards. We're using an outsourced security company whose rates are a lot higher than, hiring additional staff. So we're trying to cut that down, hopefully, see a reduction of $10,000 a month for the outsourced security. I've also been working with our site IT company to reduce the phone line and internet expense. So hoping to get that down, reduction of $7,000 a month. We also have identified some equipment that is on site here. We have a lot of computer equipment, and we brought in a company who will wipe all the computers and, do everything that needs to be done, and then hope to see $50,000 off the sale of all of the monitors and laptops and all that are in the buildings. And $30,000 we hope to get for sale of vehicles and other equipment that's not being used.
One of the things that we have to just maintain is that we've got to keep up the curb appeal of the campus. And I think so far we've done a pretty good job on that. It's not perfect, but as we go out and redevelop these properties, and our consultants who you'll be hearing from a little bit later today complete the master plan here, it's going to be important to prospective users of this campus about how the place looks, and to hopefully encourage and elicit some interest by those people. So there are some expenses that we're going to have to incur, and landscaping and maintenance is top on the list there. So, but otherwise, every day we're looking at expenses to see if we can, cut the expense burn down a little bit without compromising any of the benefits of the campus.
Any questions on the finances? Hearing none, we'll move on. CEO report, Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me first, I want to introduce, since we've got members of the community here with us today, I did want to introduce some of the staff that we have here. Maybe, Mr. Chairman, we want to go around the table and introduce each one of the board members. Maybe you could do that first, if you'd like.
We start with
Albany, Finance Chair. Dan Melendez, member of the committee.
Nick Manza.
Justin Higgins.
Sarah Rochelli.
And we have 2 board members that are excused today, John Nigro and Allison Walsh. But we also have a group of the authority staff. I serve as CEO to the authority. Amy Thompson, who you just heard, serves as CEO. Sarah Paulson is our executive assistant. Antoinette Dukes-Hedge is also on our administrative team helping us. We've got Marco Palka, who's on the finance team. Just raise your hand so people know who you are. Joe Galea, who's our facilities manager here. Let's see, who else we have here? We've got Sandy Mathis, who's a consultant to us, who's a site economic development consultant. We have a few of our other consultants here, our PR team with Jeff and Taryn from Baker Communications. And lastly, and certainly not the least, we have our the county's planner, Gopika, with us today. We've got a great team of folks, and you'll hear a little bit later from our consultants, so I won't introduce them now, but you'll hear about that for a minute. So the subject of, I didn't how general counsel, Tom Owens, and our real estate counsel, Paul Belden. Oh, and Dave Riley, I didn't even see you there. Dave Riley, who's Director of Public Affairs for Albany County. Is there anybody else? I'll be introducing Mike in a second. So the subject of today's, of my presentation now is real estate dispositions. What I've asked is that we have a presentation from the county on the 5 properties that they're offering to buy from the authority. Mike Lawley, Director of Operations, is here to present on that, but let me just make a couple of preliminary or prefacing remarks. We are not approving today, nor are we being asked to approve today, the sale of any of these buildings. What we're being asked to do is to start the so-called, to approve the so-called 90-day statement. So as a state public authority, we are required by law that as if and when we dispose of any property, we have to issue a 90-day statement. And Tom, maybe you could just briefly say what by law is required to be in that 90-day statement.
Sure. So the public authority law requires that public authorities, of which we are one, issue what's called an explanatory statement. People call it the 90-day statement because there's a 90-day requirement in that I'll mention at the end of this. And basically the statement is required whenever a public authority disposes of property by negotiation. So rather than a request for proposals, it's a disposition to a party that you negotiate with, as opposed to a public request for proposals. So that's what we're talking about today. The 90-day statement is issued to a number of agencies. It's issued to the Authority Budget Office. It's issued to the State Controller. It's issued to the Office, the Department of Budget. It's issued to the Office of General Services. It's issued to the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the Assembly. So there's 6 people that get this. It's a very public process. It'll be posted on our website as soon as, if the board chooses to do this. That would authorize, again, the resolution that you'll see later would authorize the CEO to basically issue that 90-day statement. And the 90 days means is that once that statement is issued, it doesn't commit you to dispose of property, but it starts a clock running. You cannot dispose of property until 90 days runs from when that statement is issued. So that therein lies the term, people call this a 90-day statement, because once you issue the statement, you cannot do anything with that property from a disposal perspective for 90 days. Once the 90 days runs, then assuming that the board chooses to move forward with this, and that would be subject to a subsequent resolution. This resolution, as Kevin just mentioned, does not authorize the disposition. It authorizes the issuance of this 90-day statement, and it authorizes the negotiation and execution of a purchase and sale agreement, but even that agreement has to come back to the board to be approved. So that would be subsequent meetings. So is that?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So anyway, I think there was some concern that, we were going to be selling 5 buildings today. That is not what's going to be happening today. Nothing will happen until at least 90 days from now. And during that time, we will have met several times. Our consultants doing our master plan will have had another 3 months of their work and the start of the public engagement process. So I just want to be clear about what it is, in fact, we're doing here, what it is. I'm sorry, sir, we can't entertain. There will be some public discussion later, and the chairman will take your questions then. So that's what we're here to do today, and Mike is just going to explain what the county's intentions are and what buildings those are. So Mike, you want to just kind of walk through that?
Of course, thank you, Kevin. Good morning, everyone. So the county is looking at 5 buildings, as Kevin mentioned. We are looking at occupying them with services that would provide a community amenity. For example, the county is already operating out of the Events and Athletic Center. That is one of the buildings on this list. Our Department of Aging, Department of Veterans, as well as the contingency of our Parks and Recreation Department have been there providing services to the community under an existing license agreement. We continue to see that as the future of the Events and Athletic Center. It will be serving the public. It is a building that can't be used very well for other purposes. Similar to that, we are looking right next door on the second building is the library. The library is something that we'd like to open as a community center, a senior center, a center for youth to come in. There is a BRICS grant that is out that is available for the county to secure a decent amount of funding to cover purchase of the building as well as updating the building. I don't believe that the city of Albany currently has a senior center, so this would be a great amenity to bring back to the city of Albany. We also have we go by addresses here, forgive me. I have a board like this, but it just has numbers on it. We have the Heather School of Business, which we are currently in right now, as well as the First Center. Those are 2 buildings that we are looking to have the sheriff occupy. The sheriff would like to leave his downtown presence while we do contingency of deputies that deal with prisoners from the courthouse at the courthouse, as well as his Clarksville substation. So this would be more of his civil unit that would be up here performing business function, but there would be deputy cars coming to and from, providing a little bit more security to the area. And like Kevin mentioned before, bring more life on campus to be able to see if there's a building that has a ceiling tile fall down. The sheriff would be taking a portion of the Hearst building, I should say, while the other portion would be retained by the county proper. That is where all the media and recording studios are. The county executive has worked in the past with Youth FX and other community groups, for example, that could benefit from opening that up to the public. It's a great amenity in there right now. The last thing we want to do is rip out all the investment that St. Rose made to the property to repurpose it for something of a lesser value. We also have 1000 Madison next door. That is the final building. That has a good bones to the building that would be able to be used for administrative needs of the county. The county has a lot of shifting movement going on right now. Funding for our public defender's office has taken away a lot of space that we have, so we need to reorganize our properties, and it would just solely be administrative function up there. There wouldn't be any publicly facing client services. So that is a 30,000-foot view of what we're doing.
So any questions from the board, members of the board, for Mike, and further, Danielle?
Yeah, I think the purposes, sound good, but, just curious, would the county be interested, if there is another buyer interested during these 90 days, would the county be open to amending, the use of the properties and potentially selling it to another, interested buyer?
Absolutely. And going past the 90 days, the county's fluid with its property right now. We're looking at what can be the highest and best use to repurpose our properties to make Albany the best place around. If 90 days comes by and 91 days are here and there's the perfect fit for this building, the county would definitely entertain those offers.
And I don't believe you were at the meeting, you were otherwise occupied. But the county executive came to, wasn't the last meeting, it was probably the meeting or 2 before that, and said exactly that to the rest of the board, that if there are higher and better uses for any of these buildings, he's certainly amenable to, revisiting the use of that particular building. And again, I think, all of us here, we want to do this in the full light of day, and Again, we'll hear in a little while from our consultants and particularly our community engagement specialist who's going to be working on this. We want to have, the input from this community and all of the stakeholders in the county as we redevelop this building. Again, it's not the intention of anybody on the staff or from my discussions with the county to try to do things in here without people knowing about it. It just, we all know that there's just nothing to be gained by it. So.
And there's another question. Just curious, we're working with a new person to kind of figure out the best use of the properties moving forward. Is there a reason why you're putting in this request at this meeting rather than down the line when we have a plan? What is that reason and why is there a need to do it at this meeting specifically?
As Kevin alluded to start the clock, 90 days, you want to start that ticking. I mean, there's $35 million of debt, $40 million of debt that the county has out right now. If this is one avenue to start paying that back, we want to at least start the process as soon as we can.
And then,
I would answer that too, from the standpoint that, again, this doesn't commit us to do anything, but starts the clock. And we're gonna have to do this with every single property we sell. We're gonna have to do the 90-day notice, every single one. But my thought is that, and we're gonna hear from the planning people in a few minutes, that they have an understanding as they start the plan what the potential and possibilities are, and be able to incorporate those thoughts as they're doing the planning process. I would hate to go through this whole process and then later on say, well, something's going on. That's why this 90-day notice is important. This transparency, the public knows exactly what's going on. And as they're developing a plan, they should know what, some of these thoughts are. That's all.
and if we were to start, let's say, 2 months from now, so that our contractor could come up with a plan, what would be the cost to the county of waiting? Or is there a cost savings to the county for starting now? I think that's
I would
important.
say that the biggest cost would be time. Running these two tracks parallel doesn't hurt anyone. I think that we do this a lot with the county. We get permission to contract to go out for a grant while simultaneously do an environmental study to see if something's the right fit for us. I just want to make sure that time-wise, we aren't 2 months behind things.
Is there a financial cost?
I would look at our commissioner of management and budget.
So the interest is running on the entire thing, but this was all contemplated originally. Listening to Mike's earlier point, like earlier we can pay this off for less interest. It'll be kind of borne by the county. The entire project's profitability.
And when can we start paying on, or not we, excuse me,
Yeah.
the county, start paying on the
It is next year.
So all of our bonds have these, what they call call features, but we can't exercise any of those until at least the first 6 months, and we don't start paying interest until the first year.
So at this point, if, I know that it's the time, but it wouldn't actually cost the county any more in interest, if it were to be delayed a month or two.
We don't have to take action in 90 days.
I know, but it will come, okay, sorry, I have another question. So after the 90 days, that board meeting after the 90 days, the next one, will we be required to make a decision that month? Or can we push it a couple of months?
That's entirely up to you, to
Okay, so
the
it's-
board, I should say.
Okay, perfect.
So
So it's just a minimum of 90.
It's a minimum,
At least
but
90.
we are not obligated to take action after 90 days.
Okay,
but you can't take action before 90 days.
So we can't do
okay, so, or we can delay it a little bit after,
that. That's-
per se, if we have.
If there's reasons to do that.
The other thing that I just, a personal observation that I've seen with the campus, and, I've heard from several members of the community, as well. The more live bodies we have on this campus, the better, our prospects for managing this campus and the dynamics. We know that there are issues, we had some pipes stolen and some other things that happened, some vehicles that were damaged. And, the more people are around, the less that kind of thing is going to happen. And I think it just makes our entire community more secure, the more people you have on here. So I don't see the necessary downside in this, and this is not my decision, it's yours. I work for the board here. But, my recommendation on this, or my take on this is that, this is a prudent thing for the authority board to do. It's not something that, in my view, damages the community. And I think in some respects, it does just the opposite. It's going to help secure and stabilize this piece of property here. This is a big deal. This is 71 buildings, 930,000 square feet of space on 27 and a half acres. And the more people we have on this campus, the better off we're going to be. Now, I'm not saying that anybody in any use should be here, but, I think the county has made a case of what's going to happen here. Personally, I think having a sheriff's presence here, even though the sheriffs aren't going to be patrolling the campus, but they'll be coming and going. I'm working on another project, and there are some security issues, and they're desperate to get a sheriff's presence on this other particular site that I'm working on for exactly these reasons. So, that's Nicholas Miller.
It's on.
I've heard from community members and, specifically about the communications building, and how it relates to the Mastery, building. And, with this development plan, if we find that it makes sense to keep them together, with a similar purpose, I feel as though that's a disadvantage to the location, the properties, and the value of the properties, and the use of the properties, and could potentially diminish the best use of them. So, for that reason, I'm also concerned about that too. And so, that's another reason why I feel as though, now it's more of a statement, it's important to have a development plan before we move forward. And just to be sure that we're making that right decision, because we don't want to diminish the value and the best use of these buildings. And I know that I'm not saying the sheriff's office isn't going to benefit the community or, benefit the county as a whole. But I do know that county taxpayers also are very interested in protecting the arts and ensuring that these buildings are the best use. And we can say, anyone can say, oh, this is the best use, but I think that the county's actually paying these contractors to do work to tell us that, and so that's my point. And I would just love to know if you had a different perspective on that, and if potentially, there is an opportunity to place homelessness.
The timing on this is such that, and we have Rick and Mike here from CPL who talk about this a little bit later, but, we're doing a very, abbreviated planning process. We're hoping to get this plan in place by, I believe, the end of November. So, I think in 3 months from now, I think CPL and, the public engagement sub-consultant, who you'll hear from in a little while, will have a significant amount of work done by the time this 90-day statement is up for consideration. So again, I wouldn't want to, if this for some reason just is not the right fit here, the board always has that ability to make that decision at the right time. But if we were to wait another 90 days before we started this, it's not in the best interests, again, in my opinion, of this campus and of the surrounding community. I think the presence of the county has, there's a significant benefit.
Is it
If I may, I think the purpose of 90 days is to continue these conversations. And we have a lot to get through. And I really am looking forward to hearing more about this and having been alluded to, we're going to be meeting a lot in the next 90 days with consultants. So I think this is just the beginning of our fact-finding mission. I know I drive by the campus every single day on my way to work, and I gotta say, I see the yoga folks coming out of the building, I see life. I see a lot of cars on the street. And, I definitely, for me, I'm looking forward to seeing, how this continues to unravel. But certainly, we have a license now with the county, right, as opposed to an outright purchase agreement. I think at this point, the uses are being manifested on a daily basis. And certainly, I think for all the rent that the county is paying other places, perhaps, I don't know, but, I think this is, as a taxpayer, I think this would be a good use of our own investment ourselves as well. So I'm looking forward to getting, information from our consultants, but I just think that there's just so much that we're going to have to get into, that I think that's why we have in less than 90 days, to consider even moving on this resolution if you were to do it, so. I think.
sorry.
I would just, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just since we have our consultant here, would it be possible just to get some assurances, before we can promote?
Sure, we were just saying that, I would just say one thing, I did extensively tour the first building myself the other day in anticipation. It's very clear, and certainly we could open it, if you haven't, we can certainly make that open to anyone, that there's a clear division in that building between the recording studios and all those things, and where the sheriffs are gonna go. The building is clearly separated. And in the Hearst building where the recording studios are and all that, it is absolutely fabulous, the money and investment that's in there. And it's next to the Mastery building. We talked about an arts, piece of this, and that would work perfectly together. So, and again, the county executive and Mr. Lally said earlier that the intent is to open that up to the community and to use it for that purposes. But it's one building, but really, as these gentlemen and ladies in the planning department, Margaret and others get involved, that's clearly the intent to do that. I just want to, but if you haven't been in that building, you can see the separation. It's very clear. There's not going to be, it can clearly be separated and easy access for the public to use the recording studios and television studios and all the other stuff that I don't know anything about. Any further questions from Mike or comments from the board on this topic?
I just want to jump in to say I was very encouraged by the consultant team and the process throughout that, how we've been going through this and some of the things that we've said, both during executive session as well as in open session, as well as through the interview process with consultants, is really balancing speed and strategy throughout on this and ensuring that we're making the right decisions, that we're not taking so much time on making those right decisions that it's going to damage the campus or the community around it. And so publishing the 90-day statement and moving forward with that opens up opportunities for us as a board versus limiting us by not starting that clock ticking and moving forward. And because the process, we're already 1 month into a 6-month planning process with a consultant team that we've selected, having 3 months of that discovery and research and community engagement, being able to have the consultant vet the other interests that we have on the property out there, that is going to give us a lot of information about whether there are issues that play into our decisions around a purchase and sale agreement. And so a lot of that work is going to be done. We've heard from consultants consistently on their ability to be flexible and really move with it. And we have a good partner in the county that has also stated publicly over and over again their commitment to flexibility as well. And so as we sort of move through the planning process, concurrently with having the 90-day statement posted, if we get to a comfort point at the end of that 90 days, that these are the right uses, this is the right move, we'll be able to take action. If we don't get to that comfort point, there's nothing telling us that we have to sell these buildings at the end of 90 days. We'll be able to take everything that we've heard through the process and from the engagement. And so for that reason, I'm very comfortable moving forward with the 90-day statement and launching the public engagement strategy and moving on all of that.
Okay. Yes,
And the 90-day statement doesn't include any other potential interested bidders or buyers, correct? It's just a fact finding commission, so we still have the opportunity to engage with anyone else.
that's correct. Hearing nothing, any more from the board, thank you. I think it would be better, looking at our agenda, that before we take any vote on the 90-day issuance, that we hear from our planning company, CPL, Mr. Henry, Mike. Please step forward and give us your report. For those of you who don't, members of the public, Rick Henry, Mike, Mr. and others at all are here, and we hope to have, we will have ongoing monthly reports on the process. So why don't you gentlemen, others,
Sure.
give your presentation.
Rick Henry at CPL. This is Mike Mistriner, also with CPL. I'm an engineer. Mike's an architect. We probably engaged a month ago, but went through a pretty extensive interview process the preceding 2 or 3 months before that time. In this past month, we've been working very hard behind the scenes. You haven't seen a lot of activity necessarily on campus, but we're reviewing building plans. We're meeting with people. We met with the downtown Albany group. I'll let Mike talk about that a little bit. We met with the county executive. He expressed his vision for the property. And we're trying to encapsulate what he wants to do or what his vision is with whatever we come up with for highest and best use. And he did make that statement to us as well, that we're interested in these buildings, but if there's a better use for these buildings, we will acquiesce and consider that, very importantly. He does want to see the planning process go forward. It is an accelerated process. We originally had a 9-month process, and we've squeezed that down to 5 or 6, which means we have a lot of things happening. There's energy components to this. There's master planning components to this. There's public participation components to this. So we're trying to juggle a lot of balls all at the same time. So you may not see a lot of, we created this model, and you may not see here's what we envision for the property in the next month or even 60 days. But we are working on that. But we're getting all that base information from gathering all of the public. It's not just the public participation, but the political conversation, not just with Dan, but with the county legislature, with the city of Albany, with the neighborhood association. So we have all of those things that are all starting to happen now. Problem is, it's in the middle of the summer. Summer's pretty precious around here, but we are working on setting up all those meetings, and we look forward to working with each and every one of you.
Yeah, I think the piece that I want to add to it is Allison's not here. Allison Walsh isn't here today, but she teed up a meeting for us last week with the folks from MIG, who are working on the downtown Albany strategy, which was a great conversation, quite honestly. And we're trying not to work in isolation, so we're trying to work collaboratively together. We've agreed that as they develop plans and as we develop plans, we will talk together and we'll share with what's going on. So as this comes together, each area is not done in isolation, but rather there's an overall thought that brings us together. So I thought we had an absolutely wonderful conversation with Ben Margolis and his group. So I think there's a lot of optimism behind it. To your point about best use, we have all the floor plans of the buildings. We've been going through all the floor plans. We've been really trying to understand all of the plans. And some buildings are perfectly suited for some things and some things are perfectly suited for other uses. So that's sort of the exploration process. And as we start, as Mike was talking about, as we start to understand the program or what's going to go in that space, we can then test it, look at the floor plans. Does it make sense? And you probably don't want to put an office building in a pool, right? It doesn't make sense to do that. So how are we using these most effectively once we understand the program? So that's the process that we're trying to go through now to find those best uses for those spaces.
We're also getting, and I know Kevin's gotten a lot of this, and Dylan as well, a lot of people calling, hey, can we use this space, or can we take a look at this space? And we also are getting those phone calls now. So what we're doing is just assembling them and putting them into categories so that we can better analyze the use and the facility that they want. And then obviously price is a component, or cost is a component. So we're also considering that as well. It's not an easy process, but it's fitting together pieces like a puzzle.
To the last point about the downtown Albany strategy, what we're also trying to do with this is make sure we're not duplicating. Right? What we're going to do here, they're not doing there. So we're trying to be complementary. What they're doing downtown Albany, maybe there's something that on the campus that can be a complement to what they're doing. Maybe it's housing that complements what they're doing there. So I think there's some good open dialogue about that. So that we're not locking horns and fighting, but rather trying to find those best uses.
And we haven't, this is a behind the scenes thing, but we are very close with Dylan and Matt, my project manager, I think we've come to, we have an agreement now. We're ready to sign. But I also wanted to introduce Margaret. Margaret Irwin is our community engagement person. And I don't know if we've talked just a couple of times, but I know that she's active in the community and knows the project and the process.
I'll just introduce myself. I'm Margaret Irwin. I'm the executive official of River Street Planning and Development. We're located in Troy, and community engagement is probably what we're best known for, including on projects where there's potential for differences of opinion about what the right path forward is. And I think this one should fall into that category.
Are there any that don't?
Yeah, but they're not necessarily better. So we're now in the process of working out an engagement approach that's going to work for the Alliance and work for CPL, and that will start nearly immediately. So I think understanding the community's interests and issues and concerns during this 90-day period is certainly something we can tackle. Yep. And we've done a lot of this work, and we're very happy to have the opportunity to help you take this stuff forward.
Thanks, Margaret.
Does the board have any questions for CPL at this time? Thank you. Now moving back to Mr. Owens, can you go through the resolution? Can you go through this?
Yes, sir. So in your packet, part of the posted agenda and board materials, you'll see resolution 25-7-1. I won't read the entire thing. I'm just going to quickly go through the first several whereas clause. Talks about the authorities, enabling legislation, how it came to be created, the specific authorities that the enabling legislation provides to the Pine Hills Authority. including the disposition of property, which is what we're potentially talking about, a potential disposition here. And so that walks through many of the whereas clauses. It identifies the properties that we're considering here, and it talks about the acreage, the square feet of buildings, it talks about the potential purchase price, it talks about the appraised value, and then finally, when you get down to what it's authorizing, this will hopefully match what I said earlier, it's to authorize the CEO or the chair and vice chair to negotiate and execute a purchase and sale agreement with the county for the sale of the property at that price. The final form and approval has to come back to the board. So this will allow the purchase and sale agreement to be executed, but within the purchase and sale agreement, it will say this contract and its execution is subject to board approval. So that will come back. And then also the 90-day statement, which is included in the package as well. And that allows the CEO, chair, vice chair to issue the 90-day statement. And the 90-day statement has much of the same information, but some additional information that's contained in the resolution. You'll see the properties identified, the parties are identified, the justification, the legal analysis as to the enabling legislation, the addresses, appraised value, potential purchase price, and that sort of stuff. So that's all contained. And again, this would be publicly posted. It would be sent to the parties that you see on the address sheet that we talked about. And then the Authority Budget Office on receipt will put it on their website. There's a section of their website that is specific to these property notices. And so the public can see it. And that's it. And again, this does not commit, as everyone has said, it still has to come back to the board for the transfer and ultimate disposition of the property. So that's it, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
I know we've talked about this a little bit before, and this is not a purchase and sale agreement, but can you talk a little bit about the appraised value versus the proposed sale price?
As you know from some of our past meetings, we hired Jackie Conti from County Appraisal Services, and Jackie was contacted an appraisal of these 5 buildings, and the total amount of that appraisal was $9.42 million. The county is offering to buy these buildings at $6 million, so there's a delta between there. But this certainly fits the public purpose of the Albany County Pine Hills Land Authority's ability to sell properties to a governmental entity. And as we all know, Albany County is mentioned specifically in the statute creating the authority, and is really the financial backer of everything that's happened on this campus. So, it's basically they're paying themselves back in a kind of a once or twice removed sense.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you. I would, hearing none, I would close the discussion and ask for a motion to approve the resolution as written. Second, Jasmine. Any further discussion?
Because of the timing of this motion, and I'm going to have to say no to for my vote. But I do respect the county for all the work, and I am we are supportive of the projects that are listed here. However, I just feel as though it's going too fast, and we're already in an abbreviated process. So that is the reason for my vote, just for clarification.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll close the discussion. I'm going to call for a vote, and this requires a roll call vote. I am voting yes. Mr. Nigro is absent, as is Allison Walsh. Sarah?
Aye.
Yes. Jasmine?
Yes.
Danielle? No? And Alejandro?
Yes.
Yes.
Passes.
I'm going to skip over other business in executive session. I think it's appropriate at this time for any public comments. I would ask anybody who wants to comment to raise your hand. I will recognize you. I would ask you to state your name for the record. Public comments? Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm John Wallner, Pine Hills resident. In keeping with my usual comments to date, I'm really pleased with the process. I'm pleased that it's moving forward quickly and thoughtfully. And I do, to go back to what Danielle said, I want to see the consultants and what they will get to. It's clear that we do have time within this 90 days or beyond in order to do that. But I am very much wanting to make sure that whatever we come out of this with, we do have a really good working arts cluster here. I've talked to a number of the organizations that are involved. I'm concerned about a cluster that's just mastering, and I think we need to add to it. So I'm glad to hear that discussion about that today. I do not know the status of some of the other arts organizations. I'm hoping maybe between this meeting and next, I can check in with Dylan or with the consultant or whoever knows that. I have some data bits that you might not have, but probably you have a lot more than I have. So I'm happy to share that and to learn. But yes, we need to get this done. We need to get it moving, provided we consider the highest and best uses of all the property.
Thank you. Any other member? Yes.
I apologize, I missed the discussion, I was up there at the meeting, but,
Could you introduce yourself?
and I'm sorry, I'm Carolyn Keefe, I'm a neighbor, I actually live right across the street from campus, and I'm also a taxpayer, obviously. My first question is, has anyone actually talked to Youth FX? You mentioned Youth FX has worked with the county, has anybody actually talked to them about how comfortable their participants are gonna be being in the same building with the sheriff? Perception, even if there's not deputies there, perception could be a concern. So I think it's important to have that conversation with them if we think they may be one of the entities that will be going in there. As a taxpayer, I am concerned, first, as a neighbor, I'm really pleased that you are using the buildings, that the county is using the buildings, that they're occupied, that there's activity on campus. And I'm really pleased with the way it's being maintained. So let me say that. I am a little bit concerned that if the authority is selling to the county, it's still county funds in many ways. So we're not bringing in an outside entity. And if we're selling some of the more attractive buildings, those will not be on the tax rolls or won't go on to the tax rolls, because obviously they haven't been on the tax rolls. And I know that that is something that a lot of people are looking forward to, is more properties going onto the tax rolls. So those are some of my concerns. And then all of the discussion in the media and even taking this step may also leave the perception that buildings are not available and cannot be available. So I think it's important, if you do take this step, that is made clear in public conversation, that just because you're taking this step, it doesn't mean A, that a purchase is going through, or B, that there can't be other options in the future. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You'll move there, correct?
Already noted.
Noted.
Any other public concern?
Yes, hi. My name is David Gittleman. I'm a neighbor. My husband, Tom Murphy, was the,
I'm sorry, what is your first name?
David Gittleman. I'm a neighbor. I live on Western, and my husband, Tom Murphy, was the co-chair of the Clinical Mental Health Counseling Program, the graduate program here before he was let go a year ago. So we have a lot of interest in what is happening right now. And I'd like to commend you for this process. Thank you very much. Just some clarifications, maybe going along with what you were saying, just the multiple smaller homes and offices that are over here and looking at the tax base. I was hearing about the disposition of the larger ones. What are the specific plans that are going into those homes and the availability of them to become offices and residences which are badly needed? The other thing is, you mentioned a planning process that was going to be hopefully completed by November. I was wondering, does that mean that's when people start moving in, or do you hope by then in November the places are occupied? Thank you.
One, the use of the several houses is gonna be, come out of the planning process. We don't have a plan for those right now. We're working on it. That's what we've been hired to do. And would people be moving in November? No, not certainly not into those houses, I don't think, but other properties perhaps. But we don't have a plan for them, that's why we're going through this process and have that discussion with stakeholders. And obviously, the neighbors are stakeholders.
Excuse me, if I could, I just, this is a public comment period, this isn't a question and answer, because we'll just never get out of here. So if you can just keep it to your comments, which we and the staff and our consultants will take into consideration, and, as we go through the public engagement process with Margaret and CPO, we'll have adequate opportunity to express your opinion and get some of those.
Hi, I'm Jill Taylor. I'm in the neighbourhood. I live on Colonial Avenue down Weston. I am interested in commercial activity, restaurants, hairdressing salons, dress salons, the things that sort of bring people in and make it a more vibrant community. How is that part of the planning process, and how are we reaching out and attracting those sort of interests? I mean, it's a question, I guess, but I just think it'd be interesting to talk about that side of
Jill's, would you indulge me and let me turn your question into a comment? So what I hear is you would like our consultants to look very closely at the commercial implications of whatever has happened on campus here, and we've had those conversations, so I'm sure that will.
Yeah, my name is Liz G'day. I'm also part of the Buckingham Lake neighborhood. I know that you don't want to make this very large, you're already talking to people, but understanding that there's a partnership and a conversation with what's happening in downtown Albany, what's happening at the Harriman campus, what's happening, what the needs of the city of Albany and the needs of the county, making sure that you're having conversation and dialogue would be something that would be really valuable, and to understand that as a neighbor would be useful. I think that was a comment.
Hi, I'm Margie Skinner. I'm another neighbor. Tommy used to be in our backyard neighbor. I live on Wrightman Avenue, and I like what you said about the senior center, whoever it was that said it, terrific. I mean, I think one of the things that we absolutely need in the city of Albany is a senior center. This is an ideal location for it. And the other thing is, when Adriana said, when you mentioned seeing the people doing yoga and stuff, I think when St. Rose was here, and now those of us in the neighborhood don't know what's going on, even though we're connected and we try to be connected as well as we can. Who's doing yoga where? I don't know that. You are. Well, you got the word, Liz. Okay. But
Is it open?
yeah, you know what? It's too much. I'm sorry. I'm on this thing all the time. I'm getting so much coming in, and I can't process what's here, what's there. So somehow, I don't know what the best way is. If it's our neighborhood association should be doing it, if Canaan should be doing it, it's all the neighborhood associations, for those of you who might not know. But somehow to get it to us is to what's actually happening now. It's nice to see, as I said, compliments on how you're maintaining and what's going on here. But I think that what we need is a better means of communication, even if it's billboards in Price Chopper or something, that we know what's happening. Anyways, that's what I want to say.
Can I just say, because I'll take a plug in the, on Facebook,
the county exec's Facebook page. That's all
I see, I'm sorry, but I don't do Facebook, all right?
I mean, you know, and the county parks, and we all let the county do this, but, you know, and then I went through it, and I shared it with some of my friends and their children, because, between the girls' basketball team, free taekwondo, and I understand what you're saying, and I do think we need to let this mushroom.
Yeah, I mean, I have neighbors with little kids who don't know what's going on, and they should benefit from it, yeah. The neighbors has little kids again, 50 years later, okay, so thank you for letting me vent.
Yeah, this is all great feedback, and these are things that we will be factoring in. You know, we can put some of this stuff on our website, but I assure you that, you know, the work that Marvin Irvin is going to do will get to all of these kind of issues, and hopefully, you know, again, we're not all going to agree on every single thing that happens. It just, maybe it's happened in Marvin with some projects, I've never seen it happen. Right, exactly, that, you know, there's enough here, and it was done in the right spirit, and with the cooperation of the county, the authority, and the neighborhood, and the stakeholders at large. You know, this is this campus not only affects this neighborhood, but our city and our entire county. So we've got to, you know, really spend the time and get the right kind of feedback here, which we don't do.
Okay. Seeing no hands, we'll close the discussion for public comments, and I think we want to move to executive
Yes,
session
yes.
at this point. Tom, could you?
All right, I'm sorry, excuse me, we need a motion from the board member. The motion is to move to executive session. The reason is potential disposition or acquisition of real estate, and publicity of which would substantially affect the value thereof. Also, potential retention or appointment of a particular person or corporation, and then also to seek and obtain counsel, legal counsel. So those are the three independent reasons to go, and obviously the conversation will be limited to those topics. So that would be the motion that the board, if it so chose, will do a first, second, and then a vote. Yeah. Danielle moves.
Jasmine second, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Council will remain, Dylan, you remain,